Hey class, just when you thought you didn't see enough of me today, I thought that I would make a video and try to introduce Othello even a little bit more for you, so that when you're working at home, I can help out a little bit. So I'm actually going to turn to page 875 in our textbook, Literature, the Human Experience, and that's the book that we're using right now. And on page 875, we are introduced to Iago and Rodrigo. It's a scene one, and it's a street in Venice. And Rodrigo says, "Tsh, never tell me. I take it much unkindly that thou, Iago, who has had my purse, as if the strings were thine, shouldst know of this." You'll notice that I read to the end of the line. Rodrigo is telling us right now that two things. One, that Iago knows something that he doesn't know. And two, that he's been giving money to Iago, that Iago owns his purse, so to speak. And we'll see what that's all about shortly. Iago says, "Splud, but you will not hear me. If ever I did dream of such a matter, abhor me." So this is true. I didn't make this up. I didn't dream of this. This is true. Rodrigo says, "Thou toldst me that thou didst hold him in thy hate." So I thought you told me that you hated Othello. And now you know something about Othello, as if Othello has confided in you in some way. Iago says, "Despise me if I do not." Three great ones of the city in personal suit to make me his lieutenant, off-capped to him, and by the faith of mine, I know my price. I am worth no worse a place. So I should have the place of lieutenant. I don't have the place of lieutenant. I am worthy of the place of lieutenant. But he is Othello, as loving his own pride and purposes, evades them. He doesn't look at any of the facts. With a bombast circumstance, so he spoke whenever he decided who was going to be his lieutenant, horribly stuffed with epithets of war, so the speech that he made was all about war, and in conclusion, none suits my mediators for, certes, for certain, says Othello, I have already chosen my officer. What was he? Who is the officer? Forsooth, a great arithmetician, one Michael Cassio, a Florentine. So he's from Florence. Iago's from Venice. They're not from the same place. A fellow almost damned in a fair wife, that never set a squadron in the field, nor the division of a battle knows, more than a spinster. So he doesn't know anything more about being on the battlefield than an old spinster woman does, unless reading books, the bookish Theric, wherein the togged counsels can propose as masterly as he. So Michael Cassio knows battle from books, not from experience. He, sir, has the election. He's been elected to the office by Othello. And I, of whom Othello's eyes, had seen the proof at Rhodes, at Cyprus, and on other grounds, Christian and heathen, must be belayed, I must be appeased, I must be calmed by debtor and creditor. This countercaster he, in good time, must his lieutenant be. So he calls Michael Cassio a countercaster. And if you look at this at the bottom of the page, on page 13, or number 13, he's a bookkeeper. He's simply an arithmetician, someone who does the stats and isn't a true soldier. Okay? He in good time must his lieutenant be, and I, God bless the mark, his moreship's ancient. So I am going to hold the flag. How did this happen? Rodrigo says, by heaven, I rather would have been his hangman. Why, there's no remedy for it. There's no remedy. 'Tis the curse of service. Preferment goes by letter and affection, not by the old gradation, where each second stood heir to the first. What this means is Iago says it's not what you know, it's who you know. It doesn't have to do anything with the fact that I am an excellent soldier. It has to do with the fact that he was able to butter them up. He was able to do this. Now, sir, be judge yourself, where I in any just term am affined to love the more. Why would you even think that I should love the more? Rodrigo says, I would not follow him then. I'd quit. I wouldn't have this happen to me. I would not follow him. Iago says, oh, sir, content you. Shh, 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 shh. I follow him to serve my turn upon him. I follow him so that I can get back at him. Now, gang, you may know the expression, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. And Iago knows that. We cannot all be masters, nor all masters cannot be truly followed. Not all of us can be the general. Not all of us can be the leader. You shall mark in history many a duteous and knee-crooking knave that doting on his own obsequious bondage wears out his time much like his master's ass for nothing but profender, and when he's old and cashiered, whip me such honest knaves. Others there are, other followers, who trimmed in forms and visages of duty, keep yet their hearts attending on themselves. So some people bow and some people, make the leader think they're following them, and they bow and they kneel to them. Others do it, but they're really serving themselves. And throwing but shows of service on their lords do well thrive by them, and when they have lined their coats, do themselves homage. These fellows have some soul, and such a one do I profess myself. I'm going to look like I'm his friend, but I'm going to line my own pockets. I'm going to get something out of this. For, sir, it is as sure as you are Rodrigo, were I the more, I would not be Iago. In following him, I follow but myself. Does that make sense to you? It may look like I'm one way, but I'm really another. Heaven is my judge, for not I for love and duty, but seeming so for my peculiar end. For when my outward action doth demonstrate the native act and figure of my heart in complement extern, it is not long after, but I will wear my heart upon my sleeve for daws to peck at. And I want you to remember this. Iago says, I am not what I am. I am not what I am. So think about that. I am not what I am. If I said that to you, if I said, class, as a teacher, I am not what I am, you might think, she is not what she appears to be. And I think that's what Iago is trying to say. So, Rodrigo, you may see me kissing his ring, kneeling to him, saying, yes, sir. If Othello says jump, I might say, how high, sir? But I'm doing it for myself. Rodrigo says, what a full fortune does the thick lips owe, if he can carry it thus. Look down at that footnote right now, okay? What a full fortune does the thick lips own, if he can carry it thus. Can you imagine, Rodrigo says, what a fortune Othello has come into by marrying her? Her father's a senator. But he refers to Othello as thick lips. It's probably the first instance I think that I have read so far of a racial slur that is made upon Othello. Please watch for any kind of terminology that deals with race in this play. And the insulting, the feelings that happen when characters are called names. Iago says, call up her father. Rouse him. Make after him, poison his delight, proclaim him in the streets, incense her kinsmen, get her kinsmen or her family, get them all angry, set them on fire, so to speak. And though he in a fertile climate dwell, plague her father with flies, though that his joy be joy, yet throw such changes of vexation on it, and it may lose some color. Rodrigo says, well, here's her father's house right here. I'll call out loud. Do, Iago says, and call out loud with like timorous, frightening accent and dire yell, as when by night in negligence the fire is spied in a populous city. I want you to call out like the city is on fire. Rodrigo says, what ho! Brabantio! Signor Brabantio! Ho! Iago then yells, awake! What ho! Brabantio! Thieves! 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 Over on page 878, look to your house, Brabantio. Look to your daughter. Look to your bags. Thieves! Thieves! Now Brabantio comes to his window that's above Rodrigo and Iago, and they're looking up at him. And it's, it's above there. And he says, what is the reason of this terrible summons? What is the matter there? Signor, is all your family within? Rodrigo yells, and then Iago yells, are your doors locked? Why? Brabantio says, wherefore ask you this? Now the word wherefore means why, when you hear wherefore. So he is saying, why? Why ask you this? Swoons, Iago says. Swoons, sir, you are robbed. Now swoons is a way of taking a God's name in vain, sort of, by saying, if we might say something like in Christ's name, they says in God's wounds, sir, and it's God's wounds. Really, it's Zeus's wounds. Really, you are robbed. For shame, put on your gown. Your heart is burst. You have lost half your soul. So Brabantio and Desdemona seem like, one and the same, father and daughter. You've lost half your soul. Because even now, very now, an old black ram is topping your white ewe. Now the ram is male, the ewe is female. We have the black ram and the white ewe. Arise, arise, awake the snorting citizens with the bell, or else the devil will make a grandsire of you. Arise, I say. Brabantio says, what? What are you talking about? He's just said a black ram is topping your white ewe. What? Have you lost your minds, your wits, your minds? Have you lost it? Most reverend Signor, do you know my voice? Rodrigo says. Brabantio says, not I. What are you? Who is it? Who is it? Not I. What are you? My name is Rodrigo. Oh, the worser welcome. I have charged thee not to haunt about my doors in honest plainness. Thou hast heard me say, my daughter is not for thee. And now in madness, being full of supper and distempering draughts upon malicious knavery, dost thou come to start my quiet? I've told you before, you can't have her. You can't marry her. You're beneath her. Rodrigo says, sir, but thou must needs be sure my spirit and my place have in their power to make this bitter to thee. I can make this very bad for you. I'm a senator. I can make this very bad for you. Patience, good sir. Brabantio says, what telleth me of robbing? This is Venice. I don't live in the country. I haven't been robbed.